Hi, I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I wanted to come on and talk with you about getting rid of your symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress in 2 to 6 months. That's what I want to talk about because really transformation can happen fast and it does happen fast. And I'm really making this video today because number one, I want to hang out with everybody. Hello. And number two, I have had a really fun week in therapy sessions, um, and it was a fun week because I did a lot of things differently, taking on new clients, um, and so many of them in this one week, I we're done. They're just they're on the I'll schedule as needed. And I was just reflecting about this because I've done things a lot differently. I developed a program that does help people eliminate this in 2 to 6 months. It's very strategic. I'm going to cover that today. Um, and it provides the structure and the pace and the direction for people to do their own work. And so, in my work with them, what I do is I train them on this while working with them and making sure that they stay stable and well, and really get their work done. And and it's a powerful time. But I will tell you, I was just looking, and there's like two of those clients that I let go of and into the wild blue yonder, started working with me in January, and we're done. And it was really 2 months worth of work that we did intensively. And then the self care after that. And then now they're doing great. I'm going to talk about that too. I'm going to talk about what results are. I'm going to talk about because when we're talking about anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, we don't know what the end goal is often. Sometimes it's like we'll take medication, we'll do this. My goal for the end is that those symptoms are done, that they're not showing up, that we have eliminated them from the show up team, and that you can go throughout your life without symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress hammering you. And what I do is I really okay, I'm not gonna I wanna totally dive in like that, but it'll be a mess and I will have a good time, but you'll be like, huh? So we're not gonna do it like that. I'm gonna have some self-control here. Um, but and I want to tell you that this has really surprised me in making this change. And I knew this was possible. My once you can do something like help somebody move an anxiety, depression, and or because some people have multiple um, trauma disorder into remission, then it's like, can I do that again? And then you try, right? And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I did it again. And then after a while, that becomes a thing. And then you're like, okay, this is what I do. I got a thing going on. And then it's like, could we do this faster? Does it need to take 6 months to a year and a half? Does it need to take that long? I don't think it does. Let's see what happens. And then you trial something else and you trial something else. And the next thing you know, people are getting faster and faster results. And really, I really now am in that 2 to 6 month window. Not with everybody, because that is not the right pace for everybody. And everybody needs to move at their own pace. But for a good majority of my clients, it really is 2 to 6 months. And so Natasha said, so the goal is to completely eliminate them instead of reducing the symptoms. I like those gone. I will take reducing symptoms as a win along the way because that's part of the process. You will see some symptoms you will see wiped out completely. And then some symptoms will reduce, and that will be the first round. They're like, okay, that was effective. And then we'll go after it again and again and again until it is not showing up. Okay. And that leads me to, and what I find is that when the symptoms aren't showing up, we're saving people a lot of stress. We're saving people, we're improving sleep. The healthy relationships are getting healthier because people are not they're not being triggered in conversations or in moments. We resolve that. They can keep themselves healthy because they are able to establish and communicate and identify healthy boundaries and maintain those. Um, I I'll talk about that in a second. And then, um, and just their whole life gets better because symptoms are not showing up. I really don't know anything about marriage counseling or couples counseling. I don't know. That's not what I do, but I what I do know is that in your marriage, if your brain is firing off with symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, that's a big problem and that's going to cause problems in your marriage. Right. And so once we're done with the brain firing off wrong, or into survival mode, then a lot of times people want to get marriage counseling. And guess what? They can actually benefit from it now that their brain is working properly. And that's really the goal here is healthy brain function in conversations, healthy brain functions in sleep, right? We don't want you having sleep and your brain is doing healing stuff and it's not working, so it's waking up in a nightmare. We don't want that. We don't want you going numb in conversations, or you having racing thoughts because you made a mistake and getting checked out of the game. Life is going on. We want you to be able to make mistakes and your brain stays in healthy brain function. And symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress to me are signs that the brain is not doing that, and that the brain is not able to complete its process. Let me say this right, okay? To me, signs of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress indicate improper, malfunctioning brain processes that should be and can be functioning well. And so I see anxiety, depression, traumatic stress symptoms as an opportunity to get in there to your subconscious programming and iron that out. Get in there to your nervous system and regulate that. Like, can you bring your nervous system to that thing, have it be spasming, and get it to regulate? There's interventions for that. And the brain does that fast. So that's when I'm talking about that, I want to see my client's brain be able to be in their life in the moments where their brain was tripping out, right? In those moments where their brain is doing nice things. Brains like to do nice things, and it's always trying to do that. And symptoms of anxiety is actually the brain trying to do that and can't, right? And so what we do is we'll just take that issue and help your brain move through its own healing process so that it can create the healthy brain function right there. That's the whole deal. And what I have found is that when you have an anxiety, depression, or trauma disorder, and if you have all three, there's a specific process that works well for me and the 200 clients that I have done this with, or around 200 clients. Um, and I've used it so much that it's just how I do things. And it provides enough structure that we know where we're going, we know what we're doing, but it's flexible enough that people can use it for their own symptoms that are very unique for every person. We don't show up with the same symptoms. We show up with a variety of symptoms, and one person's racing thoughts are not another person's racing thoughts. And we need to deal with your racing thoughts the way your racing thoughts show up, and your flashbacks the way your flashbacks show up. There is a variety of presentations for all of these things, and what matters is yours, not Billy Bob's and Heather's and Jackie's, yours. And so that's what I have developed, is to help people walk through their symptoms and resolve them by creating healthy brain function, by helping the brain to create its own healthy brain function. And that's an awesome process. And I'll dive in and we'll talk about it. So these are the steps I use over and over and over and over again. And if you do this at the pace I tell you, you can likely expect the same results in the same time frame and the same outcome. And like I said before, there are some people that will want to do this faster, and there are some people, which this is a pretty fast pace, but some people they will want to do this faster, and there are people that will want to do this a lot slower. And so if you were to take these steps and take them out over a 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, 5 month, 6 month time frame, let's say six, um, you would keep a specifically different pace. And that is totally fine. And you can even do it, take a longer time. Um, I don't like to take a long time because I like to get in there and clean the whole thing out, you know, like to get the vacuum and just vacuum up all that stuff. Um, because you want to be able to live in this space. And the sooner you get this thing cleaned out, the sooner you can live in it. And it's very much like a house that's has that a hoarder's house, right? That's what the inside of brains with anxiety, depression, traumatic stress look like. I'm certain. I'm certain. I think those are like actual footages of the brain. Okay. And so we want to clean that, right? And I want to clean that as fast as possible. But after we're done cleaning, there's maintenance. Everyone who lives in a home and wants a nice, orderly home where they're doing well with, they have to learn how to keep a house, right? And so I want to clean it out. While you were cleaning it out fast, you're also learning the steps to keeping a house clean, mental house. And so by the time you're finished, you have those skills established because that you've used them a lot, and we'll talk about that. And then the pace is way different, way slow. You're just in maintenance mode. And that is going to happen for the rest of your life. And so I'd like to get through this stuff so we can live in that stuff as fast as possible. Because the less time you spend with unhealthy brain function, I think that's awesome. So that's really what I have this paced at. Um and so, but I have seen where people need to take different paces for different reasons. We can talk about those and you can ask me questions. I didn't prepare that for this conversation. So I'm not saying that. Anyway, I'll probably respond well to questions, but I'm just not going to go off on that, why you would want to do a slower pace. And there are reasons. Okay. We'll leave that there. Okay. The first thing we do, and the first thing I do with clients is I equip them with interventions. And I will start them off with emotional freedom techniques and thought filled therapy and a daily energy routine. And these three are awesome. I am wanting to get more attached to the daily energy routine, but I will tell you, I mostly have people do that every day. One, because it's awesome. It really is. And if Donna Eden is watching me now, don't watch this, Donna. I'm kidding. But I have ulterior motives. Like this really, the daily energy routine it really organizes your systems and it really helps with joy. It helps with so many things. Symptoms of dyslexia, feeling scattered and not present, dissociation, on and on. I could go on and on. Okay. But I really like that when people try it because there are individual exercises in there that sometimes we find out that one of them is really good for their panic attacks. My other clients don't use it for their panic attacks, but they have found out that if they do this, then their panic attacks stop, which is great because that means that it worked with their survival system. And the survival system said, I don't need this anymore. We can interrupt this. And it interrupted that. And that is wonderful. So I have people do that for multiple reasons, but one, because I'm looking in the beginning, that makes me feel better. I feel less guilty because I've come to my intention. The intention really is to, in the very first part of this, I want to match interventions that are effective and that are working as fast as possible in one session. I do this in one session because we're about to get to work. And then emotional freedom techniques works with the majority of people, and then thought filled therapy, especially one of the interventions in there specifically is phenomenal. So with those three, we get rocking and we start going after this. And then later on, as people build skills, probably around, I noticed that. Anyway, I'll tell you about it more. Then I'll pull in EMDR if they're ready for that and if they have the skill set and if it will be a good match for their brain. Okay. And when I say good match for their brain, I'm talking about we use this with a problem and brain says, I love this and solves the problem, eliminates the symptoms. And so that's really what I'm looking for and when I'm matching interventions. And so we can find that out in the very first session. And I do because I want to make sure we're getting results and we're starting to eliminate symptoms right away. And it's very, for me, it's very evidence based. How intense is it now? Let's use an intervention. And it's a 6 now. Let's use an intervention. It's a 3 now. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. It's a 6 now. Let's use an intervention. It's a 6 now. I might set that to the side. Let's try that again. What about this intervention? Okay, let's go back to that other one. Let's use that one again. And by the time we're done with the first session, we've got some on board that I know that they can rock with. So, okay, wonderful. Okay, Natasha says, yes, she's EMDR trained. Wonderful, wonderful, fabulous intervention. So, my and you may find that Natasha, if you're only trained in EMDR, this process is not necessarily going to work for you because you don't you emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, and energy medicine have no known side effects. We know that with EMDR, as awesome as it is, it has some massive, nasty side effects if it's not the right fit for somebody. And so this you would really need to alter this plan for your clients, or I would recommend get trained in emotional freedom techniques and thought field therapy because then you can rock from the very first session. Okay. And okay, the second thing we do, and this starts pretty immediately as well, this starts in the first session. I actually give people this information. I give them a handout that walks them through this intervention and the first strategy that we're going to use, where we're going to map out their symptoms and their stressors. And this is our game plan. And I have them look through that. Some people, when they do that, they're like, oh my gosh, let me write it all down. And they come to their first session like, let's rock with this. That's fun. That's awesome. And there are other people that are like, oh my gosh, I can't even look at this. This is too distressing. That's great too. I love that because their survival system has come to this session with me, and their survival system is like, we're not going to make it. We're going down if we do this. And then we get to use interventions right there with their survival system. And now I'm matching interventions with their survival system. And when their survival system says, maybe we could do this. Then I'm like, we got one. Okay. And we're trying another intervention. And then the survival system says, hold on a moment. Let me get to this map here. And it starts mapping it out. And so I'm like, we're in. So that's fun too. That's actually, I have that, what I give my clients is available for download, not for download, as a program on my website. It's called the Jumpstart Program. And it's the very first strategy I use. And you can use it starting today if that's what you choose to do. And you will have an intervention that you can use. And I start them here with that um, to work with that when we spend a week here at least. Okay. And what I have them do is I have them use this mapping strategy. The strategy is for mapping, isn't and for planning, and to walk them through. We're going to work on this one right now. Then we're going to work on this one. Then we're going to work on this one. And then we're going to work on this one. And brains love this activity. And I have them use this strategy for 2 hours every day after they leave my session. We're going to use it together for as many minutes as we can get in because we're doing the interventions, we're doing the mapping. So we can get up to 30 minutes on that. And so we're working on it together. They're like, yes, we got this. And so I was like, do you feel confident to use this between sessions independently? If they say yes, they're off. If they say no, then I will usually give them a couple extra strategies, but I don't have people that say that. Um, I can't, I'm not thinking of any clients that did. Oh, yes, I have had a couple clients that did that. And that was great because we just did work with their survival system. Okay. And that was great because I will send them off on a week. And in my 8-week intensive, we meet twice a week for 2 hours each time because we're working. And so I will send them off after the first session that we have is individual and where they're matched with all these things. And then from there, I will send them off to my brain's going multiple places, work with their survival system. And then they'll meet in the small group. And then we'll get to work. We'll tune back in there. These are small groups, but we get a lot of individualized attention because while one person is off using the intervention, I'm working with another person. They go off and use the intervention. So I just kind of hop around and strategize and work with people, but everyone's doing their own work. And so that's really what's powerful here is that they're getting the brain work, they have support, and we're going. So, and they're eliminating symptoms themselves, which is really powerful. And I feel like I missed what I was going to say there. Okay, so a lot of times I'll have them spend 3 days or so. Yeah, there we go. I will they won't use the strategy. I'll have them go 3 days just working with their survival system because I'll show them where their survival system is showing up in their life. Or once they understand what's going on with their survival system, they're like, "Oh, like this?" And like, "Yeah, that's it." And this, yes. That, yes. And so I will give them time to work on that and start getting their survival system on board and regulating so that they're feeling more calm and like they can, and it doesn't need to be so defensive and reactive. And so then in there, the next one, then we'll get going on this mapping strategy, and we'll use that for the time, for the rest of the 2 hours a day. Okay. And that's the piece of this 2 hours a day. When people hear this, sometimes they're like, my my clients years ago, when I was developing this program, I love you all if you're watching this, but I'm telling you, because they were used to only doing this with me in sessions, right? Because that I didn't have this program developed. I didn't know how to hand them the tools. And by the time I figured that out, they were all like cush in seats and like, we're doing this work together. We don't do this work at home. And so when I said, hey, let's have you do this work for 2 hours every day. They were like, oh, what? No. Anyway, their eyes bugged out of their head, all that stuff. So anyway, um, but most people that I work with now come ready to go for 2 hours a day. And the truth of the matter is that if you've got anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, if you've got a disorder, you've got 2 hours of malfunctioning brain function. That's not the word. If your brain function, you know what I'm saying. If you've got a lot of symptoms, you've got more than 2 hours of malfunctioning going on. And we want to be working with that. We don't want your brain just doing that. We want it supported while it's doing that, because it's like it's over here like swimming wildly, not going anywhere. And when we come alongside of it with these interventions and strategies, we're like kind of grabbing it under the arms and giving it a boost forward in the actual direction it's trying to go. And that's what really makes that powerful, because it's like once it gets going, it's like, oh, I know what we're doing, and it'll really take off for you. And so you really often find that it just needs a little boost. Sometimes it needs its hand held and walked entirely through the thing, and that's okay too. It doesn't, like, taking the brain's hand and walking it through something is like working on one issue for like 40 minutes to resolution. Not a big deal. A lot of times when you give it like about 5 minutes of the work, then it will start working on it itself. And that's awesome, because you can get rid of stuff that is showing up, or you can shift out of stuff, or you can start reducing things in about 5 minutes at a time. So after that, 2 hours does not seem like a big deal, especially because once you start getting excited, like, oh my gosh, like I have somebody who is working on my Jumpstart program independently through the self-study track. She has my number and she texted me yesterday, so excited, because she was able to pull herself through an OCD funk that she experiences every morning, that dysregulates her, makes her late, and then starts her out super stressed throughout her day. And then the stress just keeps climbing. And so she was using the strategies and the intervention, and she's like, look what I just did. And I'm over here, yes, good job. It's really this stuff, the brain is ready to go. The brain is electrical. It loves to do this work at electric speed. Okay, let's see. So that's the second thing that we do. We start mapping out. And what we're looking for in that first strategy is stressors and symptoms. These are high level things. Like, we want to get down to the root, right? And if we were doing a therapy session or something and I wasn't trying to teach you the stuff, we could probably go down to the root a lot faster. But since I really want to make these tools something that anybody can do, and that we're also building your skill set, and also we're going after the low hanging fruit, the symptoms that will resolve with just a little bit of this interventions on it, then this is where I start you, because most people don't get into trouble up here in their stressors and symptoms. And when you start opening up the stressors and symptoms and you see what's really in there and you're using your interventions on that, your brain starts being like, oh, I can fix that. Oh, really? That's what's going on here? Oh, I know what to do about this, and it starts resolving them. And then all of a sudden you're like, I thought this was a horrible deal. People crying over this stuff, which I'm not saying that. Like, I'm just saying intensity wise, I love crying. I'm very good at that. I encourage my clients to be very good at crying, but right, they'll pick something that they think is easy, and the next thing they know, that's activated a lot of distress, and they're crying. And then the next thing you know, after about 10 minutes of working on it, they're like, "This is not that big of a deal," and it's not. But it is a big deal because humans tend to have problems with how we feel about things, not with actually problems. We have problems with how we feel about problems, not our actual problems. And so, and that emotion, and that the getting stuck in the emotion of your problems is because that emotion is staying in the back of your brain when it needs to be moving to the front. It needs to be moving through your brain's healing process to get to the front, where your brain can actually make sense of it and use your problem solver. Your problem solver is up here, then your prefrontal cortex. And so we need that emotion because that's power. It's something that you need. That's why this work is so important. You need your power. And if it stays in the back of the brain, it's fueling and empowering your survival system, which that part of the brain does not know how to solve your problems or to help you create a life that you actually enjoy. It does not know how to thrive. And so we don't want emotion fueling that part of the brain. We want it fueling the front of the brain. Okay, so we need to use these interventions sometimes. And if you've got anxiety, depression, traumatic stress disorder, you need these because that process is not working. And so it has gotten backed up and gunked up and whatever, and stuff is not moving forward like it needs to. It's being stuck in the back and then repeating and then making you do all sorts of stuff that you don't like. Okay, so I have people start on their stressors and their symptoms and work on those for 2 hours every day for 1 week at a minimum. Okay. And let's see. And this clears out the symptoms that are easily resolvable. And then it will leave behind whatever is more complex, which we're expecting there's more complex stuff. And so it's like if you get a forest of problems that has a lot of fog covering it, you can't really see what you're really looking on. After this week, this one's the one that really clears the fog out and helps us be able to, and it'll actually yank some of those problem trees out of your forest. I don't like deforesting land. I'm really a tree hugger, but this is a perfect metaphor. So, and we want to clear that out of problems and then plant the stuff you really want growing there. And so, and so this strategy is the one that clears out the fog and yanks out some of those trees so that we can actually look at what we're looking at. And so after this week, people tell me, and I notice that clients are more level headed. They're like, I think this is actually going to work. They're a little bit more open. They are a little excited. Many people with anxiety, depression, trauma disorders don't want to get too excited, right? Because that can really trigger things. But you can see that some people can do that. And some people are just weary but hopeful, right? And we in that first week, this builds and develops your skill set, because if you can work with this level, then you're building your skills so that we can go to the next one. Okay. And the next strategy that I teach people to use, and I have them spend 2 weeks here, is to use interventions to work through the events that are contributing to the remaining symptoms. Okay. These could be in the past, it could be in the present, it could be in the future. This is an advanced strategy. I learned this strategy in my EMDR training. I started experimenting with changing out interventions, and then I started, anyway, using other strategies. So this one is what most EMDR therapists are using from the gate. And so I teach this to clients because it's your brain, and I think that you should be able to work with your brain, and I think you should be as good at working with your brain as anybody else. And so I absolutely teach you this, and I am still going to keep you in emotional freedom techniques using interventions like emotional freedom techniques, thought filled therapy, and the energy medicine interventions that you like. Okay. When I say you, I mean your brain. But I also care about you. And so I want you also to like it. If you don't like it, if your brain loves it and you don't like it, that's okay. We're not using it. There are many more. We'll just dig into the bag and find ones that you and your brain like. Okay, now this level of work can get you in a lot of trouble. And so, if you have a lot of past memories that are incredibly painful, you will want to go slow here and not actually work on those right now. You'll want to wait until you're ready. And so, but I still want you to build the skill because we're going to need it in the future and we're going to dive back in there. So, what I would have you do is stay in the present because you can get a lot of work done with the past by working on the present, and the present is not nearly as painful as the past. And you're bringing a lot more resources into an event when you're 35 as opposed to an event that you're 5. When you get into an event, you can really lose access to your prefrontal cortex, your thinking center, where all your maturity and your values and your skills are. And you just go back into the emotional component of that place. And so, if you're not ready for that, this can be re-traumatizing. And so this one, I do give people training for this, and I give you some strict guidelines. Don't mess yourself up. Okay. Listen to what I'm telling you because I, as a new therapist, have messed people up. Okay. And I'm clear about that in my training. And so, and this is how it happened. And this is the signs I missed. And don't do that. And if you don't do that, you will be just fine. If you are somebody that has past painful issues, but they're not that intense, but we know that they're causing your symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, you can go back there and you can start working on them. This week, this stuff of work is incredibly powerful. This is the big stuff. The first strategy is like taking a spoon. Okay, right? So you've got this mound of unresolved issues you haven't worked on yet, right? Your brain can't get through the healing pathways. So we're trying to get this mound through the healing pathways, through your brain's natural healing process. Okay. The first strategy is like you're taking a spoon and we're moving this stuff through spoon by spoon. That's awesome. Let me tell you, don't hate on the spoon. This is your brain is like, this is great. So don't hate on the spoon. And that is a problem for some people because they do hate on the spoon. Okay. Don't hate on the spoon. But this strategy with events is like taking one of those big machines that have the scooper guy and lifting up a big chunk and moving that through the pathways. So this one is mega powerful. And because we're working through where we learned how to have symptoms, where the brain function went south, began malfunctioning, where we did not have what we needed to fully process something that happened in the past. And we're going back there to pull it through. Now, before you freak out, this strategy, you do not have to, and I teach this. And so I teach all of my clients this so that they know how to do this work without messing themselves up. And when there's stuff that's really, really painful, you don't have to open it up and talk about it. I did an event today. I don't know what we did. I don't know. She had it in her mind. It was too intense. We had tried it the first time and just to see what was happening. And we were learning together. And she went into this, and it was pretty intense, and so we just stayed right there, worked on it. Then we came back and we are like, okay, we're going to keep it close, but tell me about something in the memory, like a lamp or something that can sit between us and we can use the interventions on. And so it was a guitar. And so we sat there and we used the intervention about this guitar that was straight from the place, and we did one round of an intervention, and her brain was like, cracked it open. It was like it cracked all the stuff open, took out the pain, and next thing you know, she was like, "Hmm." She was looking at this thing that had before caused her incredible distress, and it's on its way to resolution. And we've only been working together for 2 weeks, and we've eliminated 2 of her massive flashbacks already because the brain's just ready to go. And as long and when it doesn't, and flashbacks happen because there's something that happened that the brain hasn't been able to move through its healing pathways. And so it it tries to get it through over and over again. So it keeps bringing it up. It keeps bringing it into your awareness, keeps bringing it. It keeps flashing it because the back of the brain cannot get rid of this. It cannot resolve this problem. It cannot stop it. It cannot, the only thing that the back of the brain can do is take it to the part of the brain that can get rid of it and that can get rid of the pain and the problems and resolve it. And that's the front in your awareness. And so the back of the brain, so flashbacks are like your subconscious mind's like, oh man, this thing, I can't do anything with this. Let's send it up. And there's a flashback, right? Send it up, flashback. What we do is we grab that and we move it through your brain's healing process on purpose. I have strategies. We chop this up into itty bitty pieces, right? And then we feed all the little pieces at a time. And then your brain says, ah, got it. I understand. And then it starts working and resolving it. And it's done. It actually will release what needs to be released and it will upgrade your whole subconscious program. And what happens with that is people stop having flashbacks. They that's massively de-stressing. She came today and was like, I'm tired. And so we were talking about what that could be about. And it's what's happening is she's not staying in fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze, or faint mode anymore. And so she's not getting those adrenaline bursts. And so because she's not running on adrenaline, she's finding what she's really got going on under there and she's fatigued because it's exhausting to be in fight or flight and there's a survival mode. And we don't recognize that because that tends to be our baseline. But once you resolve one of these issues, all of a sudden everything starts settling. I do find that I will have clients in the first week or two sleep extra. I had one client was like for 2 weeks. And out of all the clients I've had, I don't have this often, but this one crashed for like 2 weeks. She was like, oh my gosh, is anybody else falling asleep? It might have been 4 weeks. I don't know, but homegirl needed to sleep. So, and that's a great sign of healing. But mostly people will say they slept the rest of the day or they slept in later the next day. That's not usually something that happens that extremely. But this working through memories, even in the present, is life changing and transformational. And I encourage people to stay here for 2 weeks. So, and I do that because um, I teach this in two strategies. I teach how to work through events, and then I teach all my advanced skills in this week as well. And we use them on events, and we use them on the first and second strategies. We use the advanced strategies on those. And so these ones are all the strategies I developed through years of practice with hundreds of people. So these ones are all the stuff that how to get into the nooks and crannies, how to bring in the most healing, how to get the brain to pull in a new perspective, because sometimes you need that to ignite um, the healing process, how to tie in loose ends. There's a lot that goes on in there. I teach people that. That's in my third program. I have not made that available separately because it won't matter if you don't do the first and the second steps. You can have advanced skills till the cows come home, but if you can't do steps 1 and 2, there it's not going to matter. So in the way I'm delivering my program, it's really you got to do the first and second, and then you'll have the option to move on to the third. And I do that with everything I do. I do not give people the advanced strategies until they're done with the first and second. And I'm not going to do it for you either. Anyway, okay, because I want you to stay safe. This is not about head knowledge. This is about actually doing it. This is about doing the work. Your brain, how brains heal itself, is not through thinking about something. That's not it. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I correct people the most in this work is, and I don't correct them, I pull them out of it. I pull them and I teach those strategies, how to pull yourself out of using your thinking center. That part of the brain is number one, does not have a problem. Okay. That part of the brain is working very well in despite the racing thoughts. That's a signal that the rest of the brain is not working well and won't let them do what they want to do. And the rest of the brain has really good reasons for that. And we need to solve their problems. And once we get the rest of the brain on board, your thinking center can do their work. So, but we need to get that at the right time. So that's 3 weeks. So by this point, if you're doing these things for 2 hours per day, for 1 week is 14 hours of brain work, which is more than you would get in weekly sessions with a therapist for 3 months. right? Because 14 weeks is about 3.5 months, right? So doing this work yourself really speeds up the amount of work you can do because you're not dependent on someone else's schedule, someone else's timing, someone else's skill set. You can really build the skills you need for yourself and use the tools as much as you need them so that you can eliminate these symptoms. And then in when you so if and then if you're doing this 2 hours per day for 3 weeks, I have no idea what that math is. So 14, 28, 42. Anyway, that's almost a year. Okay, it's not almost a year, but we're getting close. It's 10 hours, 10 of the weekly sessions. So after 3 weeks of this, you will have done more brain work than you would sitting face to face with a therapist for 8 months. Okay, check my math. Because my I don't want to math at the moment. I'm math boycotting. um, Okay, so and that's really what makes this so powerful is that not only do you do this work, you do it faster, but then you build the skill set because as you do it, you're building the muscle memory, you're building the mental memory, you're doing it. So lots of wonderful things happening here. Okay, the fourth step, what we do now, and I'm calling them steps, but this is the fourth piece of the process, is by the time that you have gotten here, you have resolved many, many root issues and you have eliminated many symptoms. Even if you haven't been able to go back to the past. But I find that people can go back to the past about the third week with some of the advanced strategies that I teach them. And the skills that they've gained by that time. So um, let's see. So, and they will also gained a lot of insight into how the events have shaped you, why your symptoms are showing up, what your authentic needs are, and because we need you to meet those needs, right? Otherwise, unmet needs is part of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and we need to know what those are specific to you. And that's a lot of what you find out when you're doing this work. You can't find that stuff out because it's stuck in like this garbled emotion stuff that can't get into the finding out part of your brain. And so once we can get this stuff into that part of your brain, we can find out what does that mean? Why is this showing up? Because why racing shot thoughts are showing up for me is going to be much different than why racing thoughts are showing up for you. And if I tell you why it's showing up for me, that has nothing to do with you. We don't know. We need to understand what's going on with you and why these are showing up for you. And that's a lot what you will find out doing this work. And so by now, we want to really go hard and on focusing on your subconscious programming. Okay, and so steps 1, 2, and 3 will do a lot of that work already, and so the simple stuff will resolve. And especially when you take apart the events, that really does a lot for your subconscious program. It's phenomenal. And so now we really want to go in there and do the rest of that work. So we spend time doing beliefs, working on your boundaries. Beliefs are important, but we need ways to pull up beliefs. And so that's really what my the fourth part of my program is about is all these strategies I've developed over years to really get your mind, your subconscious mind, your body will totally participate with you. It's so cool. It'll tell you all kinds of things. Your survival system and your conscious mind. We want to get them to tell us your beliefs. And then tell us how you're responding to your beliefs. And so there's strategies that will pop that stuff right out. You might have your own strategies, whatever really, this is my process, but there's this not limited to any of these things. My clients, when they learn how this stuff works, sometimes they invent stuff. And I'm like, ooh, what do you call that? I'm gonna put it in my bag over here. But because there's no limit to brains. And brains like lots of things. So, um, but anyway, so when you're working with your beliefs, your boundaries are essential and vital to work with because this is like a deeper, more subtle layer where symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress can hide and go unnoticed. And if they hide and go unnoticed, they will not be able to be pulled through the healing pathways. And so they will stay in your system. And even though they're subtle, they can create some really massive problems for you. So you really do want to look into your boundaries and how they are functioning. Are you having challenges understanding what your boundaries are? Are you that's a sign of being disconnected with yourself. Usually weeks 1, 2, and 3 and 4 will get you really connected. That's why I save this stuff to this part, because if you're not connected with yourself, you haven't done the connection work, it's not going to matter. You're not going to be able to use this. You're not going to be able to do the work. But by the time you get here, most of that is gone, and you're already starting to identify your boundaries. Um, I need to know, and I teach people how to look for it, how if they can assert their boundaries and what's going on there. That's usually survival level stuff. And so we really want to work with your survival system as it relates to how you set your boundaries, if you set your boundaries, how you communicate them, and signs to look for that let you know that sneaky brain malfunction is happening. And so that's there. And then also we want to look, okay, and also maintaining, can you maintain healthy boundaries? If somebody comes and tries to push boundaries 3,000 times, can you hold them 3,005 times? If not, why? And so, and that's a big number. Usually, people have problems when somebody pushes it one time, or if somebody pushes the boundary 5 times, they will get fatigued there. And that's a brain function challenge. So, we really want to work through that and resolve that issue, because boundaries are a powerful way to make your life amazing. And if your boundaries aren't working because of brain function issues, it's going to leave open doors where you're going to receive stuff you don't want. And that will create more symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. We're closing the door to those. Closing the door. Shop is closing down to symptoms of anxiety. And let me tell you, the truth is, anytime your brain encounters something that it finds challenging, you will notice symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress. It's the brain's process. But we want this process cleared out and healthy enough that the brain can easily move through it. I was working with a client the other day, and we were working on something. We must have done 2 rounds of an intervention after 3 months of work. No, I think this one is 5. And this was one this week that we're like, I don't know when I'm going to see them again. Anyway, um, but let's see. Let me use my brain here. We did like 1 or 2 interventions and his brain just kicked right up. And I was like, that is the result of a nice, clean process that your brain just like knew what we were doing. It wasn't complex because we have resolved so many other issues, and it just came right on through. It was awesome. And so, and that's the result of just doing the work and getting that brain functioning and knowing what we're doing here. And so that's really a wonderful thing. So the other piece is that where symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress can hide is in your relationships. And so we want to look through those. But by the time we get here and we're talking about subconscious programming, we have spent here, we're at 6 weeks. This is our 6th week. Your inner world is entirely different. It has gone through so many upgrades. You have integrated so many pieces of yourself in your life. Things are running so smoothly that one of the reasons I put this here at the 6th week is because we want your brain to update its subconscious program to who you are now and your relationships. We don't want your programming for your relationship to be programmed for who you were 6 weeks ago when all those symptoms were coming up, right? Because when you have symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress, it's like if you had a broken arm, like, right? You're like, you know, hey, don't get so close. You're gonna hurt things, right? But once your arm heals, you don't need that boundary anymore. But it's like we want to run through that because we want to upgrade your subconscious brain, because your subconscious mind, because your relationships will have learned there's an injury here, and don't avoid it. And right now you're like, I don't want you to do that anymore. I want you to come closer now, or I want you to whatever, based on who you are now. If you haven't been able to set boundaries and all of a sudden your boundaries are kicking on, we want this relationship where there were no boundaries. We want your brain to say, what are we going to do with, we've got these new boundaries and this old relationship. What are we going to do here? We want to put your brain to work to really customize these new boundaries specifically to these important relationships. And so that's what I guide you to do. in the sixth part. Okay. But that's step four because it falls under subconscious programming. Okay. And then at this point, it's really time to zoom back out. We want to zoom out and look at everything, what we've accomplished, how we're responding, what are we looking at? And we want to notice what's remaining. We want to assess our function and assess our wins and celebrate those and look at any remaining symptoms and stressors. Many people at this point will look at their life and they will not find any symptoms and stressors that are coming up. And I'll check. I'll do a hard check when I'm working with people. I feel foolish when I do this because I'm like looking here and there. What about this? Remember this issue we had? What about that? And they're like, yeah, this is what I did. This is the process. This is a new thing. It's running really nicely. And I'm like, but what about this? Yeah. And so anyway, that strategy works really well in the beginning. And at that end part, I'm like committed, but I do feel a little bit foolish, especially because anyway, um, so, because I'm grasping, which that's what we want. I want to be grasping, looking for, like, if you go to your doctor's office and you had a break and they just look at it and they're like, okay, looks good. No, touch that thing. Can I touch it? Yeah. Okay. It's looking good. What about this? Any pain here? Any pain when I do this? Any pain when I do this? That's what I'm doing. But I need to work with that because something's coming up for me because the doctors don't feel weird doing that. They're like, yeah, good job, good job. And I do that too. I do say, yeah, good job, good job. But it just feels a little bit, I don't know. I'm gonna have to work on that, or work with that. But um, so that's so by that time, if I do a thorough check and you're good, now I want you to be looking at your goals and your life goals and your plans um and any dreams you have, right? Sometimes I work with painters and their trauma has blocked them from actually painting. Okay, well, you're not coming out of my program, and we're not without in my thing without being able to. If you're an artist, you need to be able to art. If your symptoms are blocking you from arting, we're not done. We're just not done. And so here is where I will have people use. I have a master strategy at this point where you use every skill in a very systematic way for each remaining symptom. So each symptom gets all the layers of work. And so that way people are learning how to take a symptom and shake it down. I don't know. But get to the root of it very quickly and very with all of their skills and resolve it at the root. And so that they can really target any symptom that they want in their life and take it apart. Um, and so we spend a week we spend a week there, sometimes two. And then I also teach them strategies for um, creating the brain function that they know they're going to need, but they don't need it yet. So I have them do that. It's a lot of future stuff, future work, and imagining and building the beliefs that you'll need to accomplish that before you get there. Because once you know how to use the skills for this, you can use the skills for anything. And so I really set them to work at things that I know that they're going to need in the future. Plus, I want to be able to help them unblock their dreams and unblock their goals and make their life happen. Because if you have all these symptoms and you get rid of them and you're just sitting there, no, I have some clients that are just like, I want to go make friends and they're recovering from social anxiety. Okay, that's our goal. And then I show them how to use the tools to make that happen and build the brain function, right? I can't give them any tips on how to make friends. That's not my specialty. There are brilliant people for that. But I can help them develop the brain function so that they are not freezing when they try to go say hi, when they're not withdrawing, when they're not going into faint mode, when they go think about, I'm going to go outside and hang out with some friends, and their body says, no, you're not, put you to sleep. And we're going to keep you surviving because you keep trying to get away from us, and we're just going to put you to sleep right now. And their system is using a form of faint mode, right? That's a problem. That's not okay. Um, and then they end up sleeping a ton and then they think something's wrong with them and then it corrodes their self-esteem. Now they're lazy and they're a bad parent and all this stuff they believe. It's just that's one symptom that can explode into a whole problem. And that I want that doesn't need to be there. So the other thing, at this point, I work with a lot of people with complex childhood trauma. And this place right here, a lot of them will still have a lot of work left to do. I find that this work takes about 120 to 300 hours of specific and targeted brain work. And if you count all of this up, after 8 weeks of this work, then you will have completed 112 hours of specific and targeted brain work. And if you've got complex childhood trauma and you're highly symptomatic and all these things, you're likely to need those 300 hours. Now, I had a client recently who surprised the tar out of me, and we got through a lot of stuff. And I did all of this to try to see how we're all doing. And she came out blazing awesome at the 4 month mark. Like, really. And I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I thought with all the symptoms she was having, I was like, we're gonna be here a while. But no, 2 months in, and then it was like, okay, I guess I'll see you in like a long time, 2 weeks. That 2 weeks is a long time for me in therapy. So I'll see you in 2 weeks. Now we're at a month. Like, and I'm just here to make sure she doesn't, that I want to make sure people can go through harder moments and use the skills, right? That's important to me. So because that's a symptom, right? When you have and relapse, right? And relapse is a very important brain function that is important and needs to be done well. And I want to make sure that clients can do that well. And so that they can use the strategies they've built in the skill. So that's why I'm hanging on to her. But as I was saying, people that have complex trauma, childhood trauma, are usually in the 200 to 300 and occasionally in the 400-hour mark. And this is just to get their house all cleaned up, right? And then everybody, this work is to get your house cleaned up, and then you go and do your maintenance. And with the thing about complex childhood trauma is that it usually results from neglect and abuse, and both of those things can really knock off healthy brain function. And with neglect, it really makes it so that some healthy brain functions never got wired in. And it's like if when you get a new baby, you get like this package of like all the equipment that needs to be assembled, right? And if you are not well yourself and you don't know how to assemble this stuff, then your child who grows up to have complex childhood trauma doesn't get their stuff assembled, right? Or if they were neglected, then they don't get it assembled. Now, the good thing is that all that equipment is still there, and it can be assembled at any time. The brain is standing ready to assemble that at any time. And so, with complex childhood trauma, these strategies are great for getting in there and doing the healing work, and also for rebuilding and wiring in function. It's just that it takes time and it needs to be done. And it takes a lot of time, and it can be done quickly, but most therapists, especially working with insurances, they want to give you 10 sessions and then be like, well, this is all I can do for you. Um, and then other ones will go there with you the whole time, but it will need to be at a weekly pace, a weekly session pace. Sometimes every 2 weeks. I've heard therapists, oh, don't do more than one EMDR session in 2 weeks. I don't understand that. But so if we did that, if we had to do this, do a cleaning out of system rebuild, regaining healthy brain function for people with complex childhood trauma, and needed to put in 300 hours of specific and targeted brain work, and you could only do that in a weekly session with a therapist, you're looking at 6 years of therapy. Okay, 52, a little less than 6. That's a long time. That's like almost a decade of unwellness. No, I'm not with that. So there's so many things, and I've done this with so many people with complex childhood trauma. They can all do this. This is great for them. And I think this is just I think that's all I'm going to say on that point. So, um, so what I have them do on this one is I have them really outline the symptoms that they want. I have them make focus projects, and I have them systematically apply all the skills that they've built. and resolve each issue. And I have them. And sometimes some brains can actually do more than one at a time. I encourage people to try it because you never know. And by this time, they're, really, really skilled. It's really so much fun to work with clients at this point as well, because the level of conversation, it's like I'm talking to therapists. Not really. It's not the same thing. But in this specific, because in therapy, you have so many more skills that you need to bring in, and you have so many more responsibilities, and you work with such a vast number of people. It's not, but for themselves, they are rocking at this point, and they have a very well built skill system, and that's fun. So fun for me. Um, and that strategy allows you to unravel any complex symptom or obstacle so you can clear it and reap the rewards. And so I recommend 2 hours per day at this, using this strategy for a minimum of 2 weeks. Now, what happens here is that, let's say you do these 8-part steps and you do them 1 a week, which is a reasonable time frame, and I would recommend that for most people. Um, if you do that, you've gotten 112 hours of specific and targeted brain work that you've conducted on yourself, building your skills. Let's say you have complex childhood trauma and you need more. So you do the program again, or you keep working using the focus project for the next 8 weeks. You put 8 more weeks in, 2 hours per day. Now you're at 200 and I don't know how many, 200 and some hours. And that's, I'm mathing. Okay, 212. So 224 hours of specific and targeted brain work. And then let's say you need another, you need to keep at it. And you really can go through the program over and over again. It's meant to work with where your brain is now. And so you can do the activities over and over again. Your brain will give you different answers every time. And that's really what's nice about this, is that yeah, that's how it works. And so then, if you still are experiencing some of these symptoms, which is real, you're going to keep using that. And then by the end of those 2 more months, which now you're at 6 months, you will have completed 336 hours of specific and targeted brain work. And that, I find, really is enough to move a disorder into remission. And when I say that, that means that you don't meet criteria for anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress anymore. You're not experiencing anything that's debilitating you. Your function in your relationships is not being compromised by symptoms. And let's see, yeah, your brain has resolved the flashbacks, the fear responses, the defense strategies. All of that is stuff that we're targeting and going after. And that you're showing up, not just eliminating them, but that you're showing up in the places you want to show up, and you're testing out your brain function and it's running well. You're proud of yourself. You're like, yeah, good job, brain. Because your brain is supposed to make it so that you're living your life in a way that's pleasing to you, right? When you show up and you're with your kids and you're interacting with them, is that how are you doing it? Or do you have symptoms? Okay, if you have symptoms, figure out which one those are, come back, work on them, get back out there, try it again. How's your brain working now? Are you like spacing out? Are you dissociated? Are you having racing thoughts? Okay, you're noticing some of those. Okay, let's get back in here and work on it. Let's get back out there. What you doing now, brain? And literally, you will see, every time you work on this, you will see things happening differently and differently and differently. So that is really powerful. These really are the exact steps I use with clients and have been using, and have used with more than 200 people. And this really has worked. I have tons of testimonials on my Facebook, on my website at rachelmccloud.com. You can see what other people have thought or felt about working with this, the results that they got. And my program is available for you to use with or without my support, right? I wanted to make it so that when I started my healing journey, I was not going to see a therapist. That was just not going to happen. I was already a therapist. I was mad at therapy and I wasn't going to go. And so I really needed to do my own healing work. And so, and I know that there are many of you out there that will need to do your own healing work, and I want that available for you. There are others of you that are just do it yourselfers, and Just give me what to do, I'll do it. And that's really the attitude here and that's great because that's the attitude your brain needs you to have. Okay, brain, what do you need me to do? Let's do it. And so that's really wonderful. And if you're somebody who really wants my help to guide you through this and to really support you along the way, I have coaching programs available as well. I have a 30-day program that's just the fundamentals. It takes a slower path. But you get the support you need. You can ask all the questions, and I help match you with interventions and so that I know you're getting results. And then we work together weekly. And then I have an intensive 8-week program that is very intensive. We do one of these steps each week. We put in the time. We see each other 2 times per week for 2 hours at a time, and we work through each one of these things so that you are fully trained. And then in that intensive program, I offer a graduate program that is just available to that group of people, and where I offer free group monthly coaching for the life of my business. And um, it just comes with that level of support. So there's a lot of options available. If this is something that you're interested in, I encourage you to look at my website, and you can get started tonight or today, whenever you watch this video. And yeah, get going. You'll watch the training videos for emotional freedom techniques, the intervention I prefer to give people with thought-filled therapy, and the energy medicine routine. And you'll get training on those, and then you'll get the first strategy, and you will be off and running. And then I also, with that program, I offer like a bonus session with me for 2 hours, a small group. So there's some support in there as well, just because you know mama henning the situation, mama birding. Um, Sorry, you don't have to take it if you don't want to, but if you do, you can have a 2-hour group with me, and I will help you. I'll answer whatever questions you have, and we'll work together. We'll use the strategies together. So that's my 8 weeks, and that's my 8-part process. And I really wanted to talk about that and talk about how fast transformation can happen here. It is just phenomenal and beautiful. And I mean, I could go on and on. So, but anyway, I have left my website information up here. I have left up in the top the 5 steps for getting free of anxiety. I wrote it out there, and then I oops, I need to put in my website there, or where you can access this. And so you'll see a link there soon, and we'll talk. And then, Natasha, I do want to answer your question. Can you share more information with me about those interventions? Okay, I have a free Facebook group called Women Releasing the Baggage of Anxiety, Depression, and PTSD. And in there, I do free trainings on interventions, so you can try them out, you can learn them, you can explore with them. And I'm going to be doing a lot more because I am trained in a lot of interventions. I am the intervention bag lady. I'm trying anyway. Um, and I'm going to just share those because that's you. I want you to work with your brain. I want all of you to work with your brain and know how to do that and have the power to do that. And then the other way you can access that is when you join the Jumpstart program. That the very first videos are about these interventions. So you get trainings right in there, and then you'll go into to the first strategy and be working with that. So there's a couple of ways. Emotional freedom techniques is also something you can YouTube. There's so many people doing emotional freedom techniques. Thought-filled therapy, you can YouTube that. If you're a therapist, you can get trained in emotional freedom techniques. I went with ASEP, which is, uh, I don't know. I know what the E and the P stand for, which is energy psychology. But I don't know what the A and the C is. So, but it's ACEP. That's where I was trained. I got my training, my first level of thought-filled therapy, and my and emotional freedom techniques. Um, let's see. And then Donna Eden has a practitioner's program, which is wonderful. Anybody can take that. It's intensive. I'm doing the 4-year one. I'm on year 3, and it's been fantastic. That's been my energy medicine one. And but I do believe there are many people teaching energy medicine. It's just about who you like and who you found. I mean, I was just looking for this what I was looking for, and her name kept coming up, and I had already read her book, and so I was like, no, swipe. And it kept going. I tried different search words and it was still her. And so I was like, fine. Anyway, I'm thrilled I did. I got way more than I thought I would out of that. So those are, and yeah, those are some wonderful options for training, because as a therapist, you need to be trained to use this with other people. If you're a person and you're using it on yourself, you can get started whenever you want, and however you want. And therapists, we can go and we can try these out and we can already start implementing them with ourselves. So um, I hope that answers your questions. I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and jump off. Wonderful hanging out with you all, and I will see you around. And yeah, happy interventioning and eliminating your symptoms. Take care.